Welcome back to the channel, guys, and thank you for tuning in today. And today I'm talking about my testimony. And if you've seen from the title, my life with a transplant in my life, kind of going through that transplant and all those events that kind of correspond with it. And for a little context, a little added context, I might add, the reason for the transplant was because of me going through stage 4 liver cancer. The cancer itself is a hybrid between kind of two, so it was a hybrid cancer. Is actually pretty rare, thankfully, and I've been so blessed to have excellent medical staff and excellent care, and to be able to survive and honestly come out better than I was. And so today I just want to share kind of my faith in God and how these events, this testimony has really shaped my life. And so I think the most important thing to start with is, firstly, this happened 4 years ago, and that is why I made this video today. Exactly 4 years ago today that I had my transplant. I was 13 years old at the time. I'm 17 now, but I was 13 years old then. I had gone through 3 rounds of chemo already. We had been waiting for a liver to come, and it came. We were only on the transplant list for a couple weeks, and it came at a perfect timing in between my two chemos, so I could get the transplant and then be still on schedule for the next chemo, which is important because the cancer I completely basically took over my liver, and there was a great fear of it spreading to somewhere else, and that would be catastrophic. And so that's why it was so important for those chemo rounds to stay scheduled like that. I had 6 in total. I had 7 actually. One at one hospital and then 6 at another. But that's beside the point, and I actually have a video coming out that Woody goes in depth about my testimony, but I want to keep this video quick. And so it was 4 years ago, and I got this transplant. We actually went into surgery about 1:10, 1:15 in the morning. And so all October 20th, we stayed at the hospital, waiting for everything to get ready. And then about 1 o'clock in the morning, I get loaded up into the kind of cart, and we go. And then I go in to, get this very long, very complex surgery. Actually, the liver is the most complex organ, the transplant, just because the biggest, right? And how many vessels and how everything's hooked up to it. But medical terminology aside, the real story is my faith. And so I'll give you this. Before all this happened, I didn't have a relationship with God at all. Did I know God? Yes. Did I have a relationship with God? No. Is that because of Him? Absolutely not. Is it because of me? Absolutely. I just did not care to have one. I went about my day living by my own moral standards, or the standards that are, placed forth by the Word, and I just went and just lived for the day, lived for the moment, and it led me to really nowhere good. Now, I was still blessed, and I have a great family and had a great household. I was living in a great place, but I was missing. I was truly missing something. I just didn't realize what I was missing at that moment. But when I look back, I think, okay, wow, I was not truly living before this kind of experience. And I always loved the mark, pre-transplant as one half of my life, and then post-transplant as another half, or another chapter, if you will. Because I look back and I see myself before the transplant, and I don't like the person that I am. And so my relationship, it even got to the point a lot of times where I would do my nightly prayers, and it would simply be, okay, God, what I prayed last night. I was just doing these prayers, and I was going to church every once in a while, just to fulfill an obligation, to make my parents happy or to make my family happy. I just did not care really about any relationship with God. I didn't care about God. I didn't care about any of the stories in the Bible. I never read a page of the Bible by myself. Maybe I'll go in for youth group or or church or whatever, and maybe I'll read a page or two, but I never truthfully read a single page just by myself because I wanted that relationship with God. And so I am just a a person with no compass. I have no purpose, I have no direction, Woody. And so, I lived this life, I lived this flawed life, and then, these traumatic events happen, and it all goes down so quick, and my life is uprooted so quickly. Uprooted so quickly. Next thing I know, I'm in another city. I'm actually in Cincinnati's Children's Hospital, where I have lived in Charleston, got sick, and then I got transferred up to Cincinnati Children's. Amazing hospital. I mean, it's the best children's hospital in the country. You can look that up, but it's truly the best, and it's truly a blessing that God actually got me down there. And now I look back and I see, okay, wow, God has really navigated me through this. But I go through these events, and the whole time, and I'm at the hospital for about 7 months. The whole time here, I am basically cursing God, if you will. I'm kind of hating. I'm just away from God. And I'll give all the kudos to my mother. Her relationship with God, she definitely, questioned Him at times, which is understandable, and it makes sense. But she always remained so firm in her relationship, and I always would give kudos, and I always appreciate, I always credit that to her, how close she stayed with God during those moments. And I wish I could say the same, but at the same time, I never had a relationship to begin with. And so I went to the first thing I could blame, and that was God. And so I keep blaming God. I keep going away from God. I did not care. I leaned more into this world of saying, okay, life is so unfair. I don't understand, why does this happen to me? Life is not fair, right? God is not good. God hates me, right? God doesn't love me. And I go through all of these thinkings, and so many thinkings that I know many of us go through. And trust me, I have gone through every single one of those thinkings. And even after my transplant, even after I got home right around Christmas, it was so a blessing. It was right before Christmas. I get home, and for 6, 7, 8, 9, actually, Woody, about a year and a half, I just go hating God. And I remember just even just going and just writing how much I hate God, and how much I don't understand, why my mom loves a God that constantly has just put me through such a traumatic event. I remember that feeling, and afterwards I was way lost as well. And it's interesting because I look back and I see my life, okay, well, when I don't have God, I was truly lost. Before, my traumatic events, before my cancer and all that, and then afterwards, right, I was also lost. And you would think that, okay, well, I go through this, well, now I can just live my life to the fullest. But no, I was constantly having, that survivor's guilt of sorts. Definitely the survivor's guilt of, having received this transplant, having received this amazing liver. Someone else has to pass, and it's just such a blessing. And I thank God for letting us be able to even we've contacted family, and we've talked to them, and we talk to them, every once in a while, and they're great people. And they're truly great people, and we even know the I guess it'd be the donor, and he was just an amazing guy, truly, and he was in amazing shape, and an amazing Christian, and truly like a great human being. And and I still go through this kind of guilt of thinking, okay, he died and he passed, and then I get this, I received this, and yet I'm not doing enough. And that's a guilt that I go through, and that's a self-hatred that I go through still. It has improved, definitely, now that I lean more, when I go through that, I have to lean on God constantly. I have to get away from my own mind. I have to know that it's the devil who is sitting at my table, who is telling me these hateful thoughts, because he does want to bring me down. And I know that if I didn't have that relationship with God, right, my life would still be in, it'd be a shards, it would be in pieces. Because my life, when I haven't had God, has been a complete catastrophe. It's been completely just broken, no purpose. And honestly, the biggest thing with a human is you can have everything in life. You could have the greatest house, all the most money, the most wealth. But if you don't have a purpose, then you're not living to the fullest, and you're not going to be happy. Right? You have to have that meaning, and that meaning is found in God. And I eventually found that meaning, and actually came about a year and a half later. One day, I don't know what inspired. I would say it's the Holy Spirit. And one day I went, opened my Bible, and I started reading. All right, and that's when my relationship grew. And it's such a blessing. I was inspired by that. But there's always been one event that stuck out to me that I can never mistake it. And I'll even close this video off with this event, because it is above all things, and it's the one event I can look back on and say, God was here for me. So I'm in the hospital, and these are during one of my worst moments in the hospital. Right, in the 7 months, or the 6 or 7 months I was in the hospital, I kind of divide them up into the little chapters. And so you have the first month at this one hospital, and I get transferred. And so I'm in the second or third month. I think it's real bad. Right, I'm on painkillers around the clock. We were in this point where they gave me this button. If I feel pain, just press it, and they would just give me. The machine would give me painkillers. Right, I'm on this. I'm drugged out of my mind. And that's no fault to the medical staff, of course. They did amazing. They what he did, taking away the pain that they did, because the pain was overwhelming. I mean, I can't even describe it to you in words. I can't describe it. But I'm constantly getting these painkillers, and the most common one I was on was Dilaudid, and that one worked the best for me. But I was also on Oxy for a good period of time, and that way threw me off that or something. And then even for a little bit of time, a little fentanyl, morphine, of course, Valium. All the painkillers. I could just keep going on about painkillers, and that's a different story. But I'm in this room, and I'm sitting on my recliner. I had a bed, of course, a hospital bed, and to the left I had this recliner. And I would sit in this recliner. This would be my saving grace, because I would be able to sit up, and it would help relieve the pain that was constantly in my back from my spleen being enlarged, and which the spleen being enlarged puts on my shoulder. And so my whole right side is just pain, is a 10 out of 10 with pain, right? Cannot get any worse. But it would be able to relieve my pain just that bit. And I was constantly in that chair. Now this moment happened when I was sitting in this chair, and my mom, she goes out the room, and my dad is back home. He still got to work, right? And so my mom, she leaves the room. I think she goes to get some coffee. And so I'm in the room by myself, and the TV's on, but I'm so zoned out. I'm so zoned out that I don't even notice the TV, right? I don't hear the TV or see it. It's just a screen to me, and I'm not even looking. I'm zoned out. I'm thinking, and then this figure, and it is this amazing thing I can see on my bed, and he is laying there, and he's I wouldn't say laid out, but he's laying there, and he's in this right robe, and he's just laying there. And I tell you not, I think I am 100% sure it was Jesus, or some spirit, a good spirit, of course, or Jesus. But it was this figure, and it was a person, and I could make it out. And I looked over, and for about 20 seconds I just looked over. I even rubbed my eyes. I'm like, okay, I gotta be. I'm so drugged right now. I gotta be out of it. I rubbed my eyes, still there. I even asked, "Who are you?" And I remained there, and I honestly felt this presence, and it was just this amazing thing. And then my mom came back into the room, and it was gone, just like that. And I have till this day thought about that event constantly, because I know it was Jesus. And you could say, okay, then, well, you probably were drugged out, and you probably didn't feel it or see it or whatever. You're just making stuff up. No, I'm absolutely not. There was times. I mean, most of the time I couldn't even imagine, right? I couldn't even think. And during this moment, I was just alert, and I could see this figure, and he was just there. It was truly amazing, and it's been that event that I think about constantly. And I think, okay, well, is God, would he with me? Is he, would he watching over me? I think about that event every time. I think, yes, he was right there. And it is truly amazing what God has done for me. And ever since this transplant, and ever since the events that I've gone through, I have tried to, these events, right, and this testimony has just strengthened my faith to unknown bounds. I mean, I needed this, and I honestly, it's hard to even imagine, and you think, oh, how can you say this? But I say, thank you, Lord, for letting me go through this. Thank you, Lord, for the pain that I was brought, because you know what it says in James, right? It says, be glad for the trials you go through, right? Because they test your strength, right? And so that verse, I feel so applied to that verse. And I think about Job too. I think how Job felt so forsaken, and how he said, God, right, let me bring my case before you, right? Let me bring my case before you. And then afterwards he gets, redeemed, and he can see, and God, asks him these rhetorical questions, and Job doesn't know how to answer because of God's, grace and God's glory and his powerness and how all-knowing he is. And I was so short-sighted in so many places, thinking, how is this going to help me, and why is it God making me go through this? Even to a point where I was in the MRI one time, and I cried out, like, why God, right in the MRI room. And I didn't care. The pain was so overwhelming. I just had the crush in God. But now I sit back, or I stand up, and I see how 4 years later, how he's led me and what he's done, and he's brought me to him. And that's something that just, you can't put a price tag on. You can't. It's just the greatest gift he has given me is what I've gone through. It's this testimony that I can share. And I felt like in some regards, I partly failed because I haven't shared the testimony like I should. And I once again, I give all the kudos to my mom, because she shared her story. She shared my story. And my story's been able to inspire many. But I felt a call, and I felt like I needed to share this on my own too. I need to go out and really hammer this out, because I have one of the most, I would say one of the most incredible stories, one of the most incredible testimonies on how I went from having no relationship with God into hating this God, right? And hating myself, hating God, hating myself. And then going and seeing how God has redeemed me, right? How amazing it is that God let me go through these things, because now I can stand here 4 years later knowing how strong my faith is and what he has done. And there is no greater thing, right, than God using something that you think is an obstacle, a stumbling block or hindrance, whatever it may be, and God using that for good and greatness, because truly he is all-knowing. He is all-knowing, and he's going to use these events that you can't even think, how can this be good? How can this be used for good? But he goes and he uses these events for good, because he is greater than us. He is greater than thou. And so as I leave off today, and I will constantly be sharing more of my testimony. I even have a way longer video coming out sometime, hopefully in the next week, of me going more in depth. But there's so much I need to tell. And so I think it's the perfect period that we'd be able to share. And I would hope this testimony, this video is going to be able to get out and help so many of you. And just know that when God gives you an obstacle, when he gives you a hindrance in life, don't think about it as black and white, thinking this can only be used for bad. This is just pain. God is not good for letting me go through this. Right? Don't think about it that way. Think about, okay, how is God going to use this for good? Right? And how can this strengthen my relationship? How can this strengthen my faith? Because I tell you, brothers, God is not in it to hurt us. Right? He is in it to love us, to give us grace, to redeem us. And so I thank you guys for watching today's video, and I love y'all, and just have a great day. Go out and live for God, right? Because he has redeemed us all through Christ, his son. I love you guys and have a great day.